So, good evening. I'm Neil Gordon, the CEO here at the Discovery Museum. And I want to welcome you to the final event of the 2022 Discovery Museum Speaker Series. Tonight's event is entitled How to Tell Stories to Children with Joseph Sarosy and Silke Rose West. I'm very much looking forward to tonight's conversation, and I just want to thank all of you for joining us for tonight. So before we get started, a bit of housekeeping. So we'll be reserving some time for a live question and answer at the end of the evening. And if you would, please submit your questions anytime during the talk using that Q&A button, and we'll address as many of them as we have time for near the end. If you have now technical questions, you can use the chat button to reach the webinar hosts. Now, we only use the chat for technical questions or questions specifically for the host, so please put all of your questions for our speakers in the Q&A box. Tonight's presentation will be closed captioned, and that is a feature that you can turn on and off at the bottom of your screen. We'll be recording tonight's presentation, and a link to the recording will be sent to all the registrants when it's available. So before I introduce Joe and Silke, I want to give you a quick shout out to the sponsors of the speaker series and tell you a bit about the Discovery Museum. So the organizations that sponsor the series allow us to present it free of charge for what is now its 10th year. Our lead sponsor once again this year is the Foundation for Metro West, which is a community foundation that strengthens and improves the quality of life for residents of our Metro West communities. Since the foundation was founded in 1995, it has been providing financial and educational resources to local nonprofit organizations, sharing essential data about the region to inform decision-making, and partnering with donors to increase the impact of their giving. One of our partner sponsors, Enterprise Bank, is headquartered in Lowell, Massachusetts, with 26 branch locations throughout the Merrimack Valley and the north central regions of Massachusetts, as well as in southern New Hampshire. Enterprise is a true community bank. They lead with a deep sense of purpose and mission. Their success is consistently measured by the success of the individuals, businesses, and communities they enthusiastically serve. We thank all of our sponsors for making it possible for us to bring the Discovery Museum Speaker Series to everyone free of charge. Let me tell you a bit about the museum, and I just want to tell you this background that I have around me is the museum property with our new solar panels that I'll mention in a second. The Discovery Museum has been serving children and families of Massachusetts and beyond for 40 years this year, which is an anniversary we've celebrated all summer and fall. Now, its 40th anniversary is no small milestone. When we were founded in 1982, there were fewer than 100 children's museums in this country. There are now over 300. Now, because of the scope of our work, which touches science, nature, and play, the museum was unique back when it was founded, and it remains unique today. We bring experiential, play-based learning to kids and families. But the Discovery Museum also adds an overlay of the scientific method to inspire discovery and to foster kids' natural curiosity. We make it a priority to emphasize the outdoors and nature-based learning. We provide a broad-based environment that is inspiring for kids, and we work hard to make sure that the museum is available to every kid. Building on our commitment to encourage the children to appreciate and care for nature, we have set ambitious goals to reduce the museum's carbon footprint and to do so in ways that are very visible to our community. One of the most visible initiatives, as I told you, surrounding me, is this installation of a 326 kilowatt solar array canopy, making the Discovery Museum what we believe is the first children's museum in the country to generate 100% of its electricity needs through on-site solar array. We produce more electricity than we need, in fact, and we provide that excess to other nonprofits at a discount. As we celebrate 40 years, we look forward rather than back. What's next for the Discovery Museum? We need to get kids prepared for the future. That means helping kids be better equipped to embrace the diversity of humanity, helping kids learn to use their voice to stand up for themselves, to stand up for truth, to stand up for science, and importantly, to stand up for each other, and helping kids be prepared to confront perhaps the biggest issue of their future, climate sustainability. We'll do this important work in age-appropriate ways that are good for both kids and families. Tonight's presentation is a lot about getting kids ready for the future, and to that end, we are pleased and excited to have Joe and Silke join us tonight. Let me just tell you briefly a little bit about them. Joe is a father and a teacher and a freelance writer for Fatherly. In 2019, he published A Father's Life, which was a finalist in the NIEA Awards. In 2018, he created #GreatDad campaign to highlight great fathers across the nation. His blog, The Storytelling Loop, has been read by over 70,000 people across the globe. Silke is a mother and a kindergarten teacher with over 30 years of experience. In 1995, she co-founded the Taos Waldorf School, and today she runs an independent forest kindergarten called Taos Earth Children. Now, she is renowned for her puppet shows and her storytelling, and she consults with teachers and schools nationally. Now, Silke and Joe live in Taos, where it's chilly but sunny out there, and where, and most importantly, storytelling is an important part of every day. And lastly, I should point out, they are together the authors of the book, How to Tell Stories to Children, which is the basis of tonight's talk. So Joe and Silke, welcome to the speaker series. I'm going to leave it all to you, and we will talk later when it's time for questions and answers. So it's all yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Neil, for opening the door and inviting us all around this very special storytelling fire today. We are here in New Mexico, the land of enchantment. And it's so amazing to participate with the great workings of the Discovery Museum. They discovered us, and we're so excited about that. Tonight, everyone who is on the call, I invite you to use your imagination and picture that you are coming around a fire, like a campfire. And it's in this magical forest. And you probably came with the intention to strengthen your storyteller skill or to get inspired. And we hope that we can kindle the fire to that point that you walk away with that in your heart and you're like, yes, I would love to tell a story. So we are inviting you to participate in a poll and let us know if your teachers, if your parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, whatever brought you here. The beautiful thing in whatever brought you here is there is a connection to a human being that inspired you to show up tonight. And that's what inspired us to write this book. Joseph Sarosy, he came with his little girl into the forest kindergarten here in Taos that I had. And he's like, oh, what makes these children follow you and go all the way over rugged pathways and steep hills? What makes them follow you? And he stuck around long enough that he realized, like, wow, Silke has a story that makes the kids go over the hill. And so we had a little hill called Focus Hill, a place where one child at one point stumbled. And it had a story of the stumbling child. That story stayed with us and helped children to walk over that hill years after the incident happened. And it became, the hill gotten its name. So the storyteller is alive within our being. As a kindergarten teacher, I practiced it quite a bit, because that's what we do. Every year when we have new children come into the classroom, we are having to create a bond, a connection, so that the children can trust us when they have to say goodbye to their parents. When parents have situations that are very difficult with children, let's say you have to get ready to school, it always reaches the child in a different way if we can have a little story that invites the child to become an active participant. And so story for getting ready to school could be as simple as, well, there is a little fairy. She's waiting outside under the tree next to the car. And I think she brought us some snow last night. Let's go and see. Perhaps there is a little snowflake right next to the car. And we have to get dressed before we can go and visit the snow fairy. So I'm bringing in these imaginary qualities to encourage the children to participate. And I would say that's the magic of the storyteller that's alive in all of us. And so I invite you to right now maybe picture yourself as a magical being. And your computer screen that you look at is a magical door. It's a doorway, and we go through this doorway and we arrive around this fire, this storyteller fire. And the fire is warm, and it makes us feel like that's a good place to be. Outside, it's snowy, it's cold, it's getting dark. It's so good to be here. And while I can't see you, dear audience, I'm going to connect in with all of you. And my own heart gets warmed by thinking that there are people from all over the world or in the United States that are coming together around this sacred fire. And in this, I get excited to share with you, because I can actually feel your presence. And I thank you for coming. And I'm going to invite Joe to also speak about maybe his experience, and then how he came to describe something that he witnessed that was a storyteller loop. Because he came into the kindergarten, he's like, there must be a system to this. And I'm like, I have no system. I just tell the story. And he's like, oh, yes, you do have a system. I will find out. And so he used his wonderful observation skills and his presence as a father who just was really touched by the storytelling skill. And then he put it into form and on paper. And he will speak briefly about the storytelling loop.
Yeah,
thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Seth. Just welcome everybody. My name is Joseph Sarosy, and Silke is exactly right. I just witnessed her in the forest telling stories with the kids years ago. This is quite some years ago now, and we continue to do that work on an almost daily basis. And one thing that I'd like to touch on is just how storytelling, at least in the way that we're presenting it here and that we presented in the book, it's really easy to think that a story is about the story, right? That it's about, I like to use the language of narrative. And that when we're trying to tell a story, well, of course, what we're doing is we're trying to tell this interesting and rich story. I invite you to reframe it a little bit and think of storytelling as a relationship. Think of it as a relationship with the children in your life. And in a little bit, I'm going to give some background as to why that's a really rich way to look at it. But it's just to say that's the approach that Silke and I both have. That when we're talking about telling stories, Silke and I, we are not professional storytellers. We tell stories with our own children and also with our own students. And that's the crux of what we're interested in. We're not necessarily going on stage to tell stories in front of crowds of people. That's beautiful and interesting work, but what we're really interested in is what you are doing at home with your kids, because we understand the relationship that develops over not just one story, but multiple tellings of different stories. We've seen that just come alive with ourselves and with our own children and with many other parents and teachers that we've worked with. And it is one of the most precious things that at least I have ever felt in my life, and I think I speak for you, Silke, as well. So that's our interest in storytelling. It's in helping you and your children connect and bond, right? And that can be through really wild and interesting and captivating stories, but it can also be through really simple stories. And that when we stay focused on that relationship, sometimes that helps if, say, for example, you are new to storytelling, or you're like, I'm not so sure if I've got it. Remember, of course you do, because what you're cultivating is that relationship, right? It's something that we don't want to just farm out to somebody else. We want that also in our own lives. So storytelling loop, you want me to jump into that?
Yeah, you
Okay.
could tell into that. And I would like to also say, like Joe, as he spoke about building relationship, it starts basically when the child is in the womb, when the mother is pregnant, when the voice of the mother is already spoken, or the father or the grandparents. And the voice of the human being, that it's like sound healing. It's something that evokes something in the child. And as a baby is tiny, it's the peekaboo games. And as the child is starting to learn its first words, the stories are as simple as, look, there's a little apple, and the little apple goes plop, and there it falls, and there it drops. And so as the children grow older, the stories become a little bit more richer. And Joe will talk about the storytelling loop that you can then engage with.
Okay, so the method that we teach, and I'll even start by saying this: there are as many storytellers as there are people on the planet, right? We're all storytellers. So take what's useful to you. When we speak of the storytelling loop, it's not that we want to convince you to tell stories the way that we do it. We want to help you find your way in. So just always keep that in mind. There's lots of ways to tell stories. So the storytelling loop, I'll use this apple, okay? The storytelling loop starts with observation. You're looking for something that your child is taking notice of, is attracted to, something that happened throughout the day. Let's use this apple. Let's say that you were out walking with your children and you happened to come under a crabapple tree. And you just noticed that, little Vanessa just took special interest in looking at those little crab apples. They were, they're just really nice to hold in your hand. Some of them were, there's a little bit of a brown spot on this one. Some of them were really nice. And a couple of the kids were throwing them and, hitting the trunk of the tree, or maybe they were playing catch, or they were rolling them in the grass or whatever. And you just noticed, right? You just notice. That's the first part. What we're going to do is we're going to take this sort of real thing, this real experience, maybe a real event, and we're going to take that kind of into the story realm. This is the first part of the storytelling loop. So we start with something sort of real, observable. And the reason that we do that is that when you begin to tell a story about a little squirrel that lived under a crabapple tree. Now, this little squirrel loved collecting those little crab apples, and it would stuff a couple in his cheeks and it loved to play catch with the beaver who lived down the way. As soon as you say crabapple tree, your child will go, crabapple tree. I remember we were playing with a crabapple tree. and that it's this sort of it's an invitation. A child just immediately feels attracted. Wait a minute. I saw the crabapple tree. And so it's a way to get a child's attention. And it's not you're not necessarily retelling the story of what happened with your children at the time, but you're just using it. I like to refer to it sometimes as a door. It's a door that the apple, the tree, you saw that you had a lovely experience. So you're using it as a door into storyland. Okay. And so maybe we're then telling a little story about this squirrel who lives under the crabapple tree. And maybe it's storing up the crab apples for winter. Maybe there's a little home, a little nest that it's building. Maybe blue jay and squirrel are getting into a little bit of a tug of war over one or two of the crab apples, whatever it might be. Okay, so we're starting with something real. I'm trying to make a loop here with my hands, if you can see that. So we're starting with something real, and we bring it into our story. And now we're entering storyland. We take that story wherever it is that we wish to do. What happens is the second part of that loop is that when the story ends and we close this loop, we now have a very, we have a new relationship to this real thing. And that turns out to be its own sort of interesting and special blessing, because if you've ever spent, an afternoon, or if you've ever engaged in storytelling in this way, right? You can imagine walking out, spending an hour walking with your kid, you run into the crabapple tree, then you have lunch, you have this story about the crabapple tree, and now you have this story about little squirrel who is doing this. Children will inevitably see the crabapple. They will see the crabapple tree with new eyes. They have a new relationship. In fact, the whole tree is now suffused with story. And if you ever are looking for ways to encourage play in your children, it's a really rich and powerful tool, because it's not something that you necessarily encourage or even put out there, but that play element is so natural for children. They will just have a tendency to do it. And if the story is about the squirrel storing up the little crab apples, afterwards the kids will inevitably want to go pick up the crab apples, and now they're going to start maybe storing them in a trunk in the tree, or maybe they're going to take it in their own way, right? This is just one example. So this is the storytelling loop, okay? But it could, may I use this? Right? It might involve a little doll that your child has, or here we have here's a little squash. It could be anything, and it does not have to be a physical object. It can, and that's often one of the easiest places to start, because it just kind of makes the most sense. But it could be an event, like say you're out with a couple kids, and maybe you've got a couple grandkids, and they're wonderful siblings, but they get inevitably into conflicts, and you have a little conflict that takes a little bit of time to resolve that, and you move on and you go along through the day. Well, sometimes a story about a couple fish that have a sort of similar conflict can give perspective on that moment without drawing too much attention onto the kids, right? So we're starting with something real. It's a doll. It's an event. It's something that your child noticed. It's also something that you noticed. It helps a child feel seen. We're bringing that into the story. And then through the process of listening to that story, as we come around the other side, we have a new perspective on that very real thing. So that's the storytelling loop, kind of in short. Would you maybe give us an example of that?
Sure. So I'm going to come back to the little crabapple. I actually work with a small group of toddlers right now. 2 or 3 years old, 3-year-olds, and we do have a crabapple tree that we walk by. We walk for like about a half a mile, and sometimes the little ones, they're like, oh, I can only go so far. And so my stories always are accompanied with a little song. So I'm like, let's go to the apple tree, the grab apple tree is waiting for me. And we go to that grab apple tree and we look. And while there's many apples that are on that tree, there is only one that's the magical little apple. Oh, and he was waiting for you, dear Lisa, because this apple knows you had a hard time saying goodbye to your mama this morning. And the little apple said, oh, please take me along. I would love to meet a little gnome under the tree, under the big apple tree. So little Lisa, let's take the little grab apple and let's bring it to the little gnome that lives under the big apple tree. And we take the little apple and we play around with it and we go with the little apple, and lo and behold, there is the big apple tree, and we find a little gnome. I have little dolls with me all the time. But even if the gnome appears in the imaginary realm, you can always say, oh, I see the footprints of the little gnome right over there. And the little apple, oh, the little apple got to turn into an apple fairy. And the little apple fairy said, oh, Lisa, I so wish I would get to see your mama today when she comes to pick you up, because I heard that she is so special. And in our story, when we use this little apple, the apple becomes our helper. And in the storytelling loop, in the way we go about it, it helps us for the children, for the young ones. Where did they come from? Here we are right now, and then we're moving forward, and with excitement, we can look forward to meeting Mama. And the little apple fairy will help us. And
It's sort of like Dumbo's feather.
yeah, which I don't really know.
Yeah, I know
I've
you don't.
So
I know, but it reminds me of that, and I've seen Silke with this so much, because especially with the particularly little ones, you know, very young children,
yeah,
walking with that little apple in hand,
Yeah.
and like, Miss Silke said that I should hold it, and what if I bring it to the tree? And it's this little thing that just helps them kind of have that inner courage, like Dumbo. If you know the
Yeah.
Dumbo story, right? Dumbo holds the feather, and that's what allows him to fly. But of course, he doesn't need the feather. But that it's just very real. I've seen that with so many kids.
yeah. And then for the little ones too, like this little girl, Lisa, for example, now this first story helped her. And now she's so engaged in play that she doesn't want to go home. When I say it's time to go back to the place where we meet mommy. Oh, I want to play. I don't want to go. Like, well, we have to go back to the apple tree and say goodbye to the apple tree. And let's take our little apple fairy along. She wants to meet your mama. You remember that? And so the story sometimes can help us throughout the whole day. Or the parent, the snow fairy that you met when you had to go out to go to school in the morning. Well, let's go home. Maybe there's a little sign of the snow fairy out by our car. I think I saw some footsteps. We have to go and see. So the story can actually span throughout the whole day, from dropping your child off at school to when you pick up your child again. And so, yeah, you want to say something?
Well, I want to let you finish though.
Yes. So stories, they can be very short, and they can be right here and in the moment, but they can expand. And so my little ones, when I see them in a week's time, again on Friday, I walk with them back to the same grab apple tree. I wonder if there's another apple left on that little grab apple tree. There is something also in stories that can connect. It can connect us. It can bridge time for little children. Sometimes it can do that even for us as adults. A place where we can just arrive again. Yes, so go ahead.
Well, okay, so what I love, I'm going to make a little Silke is magic. And if you can pick up on that a little bit, you get a sense of that. And it's something that, having grown up, I'm more of an urban guy. I'm a little skeptical, is the truth. What I'm getting at here is that it's Silke. This is real. Like, if you ever, people love to ask the questions like, is Mr. Rogers, what was Mr. Rogers like at home? Was he really like that? Or was that kind of like this TV thing, there's that documentary a couple of years, it was really good. And so many people say, honestly, like, that man he was amazing. I mean, that was real. That's who he was. So similarly, Silke is like this. I know, I've spent so much time with her now. And the reason I'm bringing this up, right, is that I notice in myself, and I also notice it on the sidelines when we sometimes do some of these talks. I'm the kind of person that when I hear somebody like Silke say these things, I go, okay, well, that just sounds so sweet. That sounds so sweet. That sounds so sweet. But come on, I can't, that's not me. I am not, I can't speak in the little sweet voice and go over to the little fairy crab. I know. And I can a little bit. I've learned from Silke. But my point is this, okay. So, but what I want to bring it back to this relationship, right? Because sometimes when Silke shares her storytelling skill, it can come across as almost intimidating. I can feel it that way, and I see it in other parents and people. And so I want to draw our attention to this. This is the first chapter of our book, which is called Be Yourself. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so if you can kind of get this idea that storytelling is about developing a relationship with your children, well, you want to be authentic. You want that relationship for yourself. Okay. So it's not about creating a character or a voice or anything. It's not about mimicking or being anybody else. It is about being yourself. And you actually are a very powerful and attractive and interesting person, but it will be very hard for you, or it may be hard for you, right? If you are trying to be something else, if inside your mind, again, this is something that I see in parents and grandparents and teachers all the time, is that they're saying, well, I really want to tell this story with my grandkids because it means so much to me. And in order to do it, I've got to kind of do a good job, and I kind of want to do it the right way. And now I'm so sort of anxious about it that I'm just, it's really, really difficult to tell a story from that place, right? It's about being comfortable in your own skin and accepting and really believing. And some people, if you don't believe it, let me tell you, I believe it. Because I've seen a lot of people tell stories, and I've seen a lot of people with their kids. And I promise you, when you are real and authentic and you tell stories from that authentic place, your children, they're going to get touched. Even if, especially if it's like the first or second time, and they act like it doesn't mean something to them, right? Because we can all encounter that, right? If we have kids that, they're super excited because they love the, whatever Harry Potter movies and the this and that and whatever, they're getting these like super high charge stories. This is real. We all have to encounter that. What you can offer is unique. It's unique, but you have to believe in yourself. You have to hold that. If you're trying to compete with, the animators at Disney, if you're trying to compete with the 30-year veteran of kindergarten, or whatever it is, chances are you will find stumbling blocks. Or I could put it this way, I will find stumbling blocks. I do. So when I tell stories, I tell them how I want to tell them. And my stories are very different from Silke's. And sometimes they're a little more crotchety, maybe, or maybe they're a little, whatever they are. Really try to own that, because this is about it really is about the tenderness between you and your children. So be honest with yourself. be honest with yourself.
Well, on that note,
Yeah.
I have that little apple again. This little apple, he wanted to be perfect. He wanted to be the most beautiful apple he could be. But dear children, a big, gigantic windstorm came and it blew him down to the ground, and you wouldn't believe what happened. The little apple got bruised and he turned brown, and he was worried that now he would not be beautiful anymore, and that no one would pick him up because he was bruised and he had a brown spot. He wasn't special anymore. He so longed to be special. Well, the little apple was laying there worrying about not being special at all, when all of a sudden a little robin came by. The robin had a broken wing, and it looked at the little apple and said, "Little apple, you look so good to me. Can I take a little peck from you?" "Oh," said the apple, "really? You think I look good?" "Yes, you look so good to me." "Oh, thank you," said the little apple. I fell and I thought, now no one would ever pay attention to me anymore. "Oh, I pay attention to you," said the little robin. "I know what it feels like. I broke my wing and I thought the same thing would happen to me. But you know, I learned to fly with just one wing. And I look at you, little apple, and I see the beauty in you." And I tell this little story to you as storytellers, that when we fall, when we tell a story that might not be the perfect story, it's like maybe in our ego mind, we're like a little bit bruised and we're like, "Oh, but I'm so much better than that." And actually, it doesn't matter so much. It really matters that you showed up, that you dared to grow like that little apple dared to grow. And when you dare to grow, you also are making yourself available to all the elements. You'll get blown down.
Mhm.
And when your children are like, "Oh, I don't like that story," or they don't pay attention, try to just stay connected. And just as Joe said, we're not trying to become movie stars or, Disney heroes. We also don't need the children to just clap their hands and say, "Yay, so great," because the imprint that you leave in your child when you tell a story, it might be that it's in your teenager that you see the result of the story that you told when your child was 3 years old.
Yeah, wow.
And it's possible that moment when your child comes home and says, "Sorry, Mom, I dented the car, I ran into a stop sign, and I'm so sorry." You might fall back on that story. "Remember when we found that little apple and it had a bruise?" You might even connect way later through those stories, because it makes children want to listen to you as parents, as teachers. And so it's not about how loud they applaud, it's that they know you care for them and they know you pay attention. And when you pay attention to the little apple that's bruised, you give them also the message, "I'm paying attention to you even when you do things that are wrong. Even if you don't clean up your room, I still pay attention to you. I'm not going to withdraw my story just because we just had an argument." In fact, the story might be the medicine to help us overcome the argument. So that, just on that note of allowing ourselves to also make mistakes, or to say, "Well, I tried, that didn't really turn out so great," or "I thought I could tell a story, but I couldn't," and not to be so hard on ourselves and say, "Yeah, I'm trying the best I can, and I'm just longing to connect." And your children will know if that's true. Now, if in your mind you are like, "But I should be in this board meeting because I know it's a night of a board meeting. I should be there. I shouldn't be over here telling a story." Your children will pick up on that. And then you have to find maybe a story for your internal self to override the voice that says, "You should be in a board meeting." But I need to tell a story to my child. My child is crying. I'm going to be 10 minutes late. It's going to be okay because I need to connect right now. Go away, you monster, into the closet. I'm going to be at the meeting when when I'm ready. Sometimes the storyteller needs a story to override an internal voice of judgment.
Yeah.
And so you can even, I do that sometimes with myself. It's like that, like, oh, will I be on time? It's like, well, I'm gonna just play a game with the time gnome. I know I'll be on time. Or, you come up with something that helps you to not even take yourself quite so serious, because that's when you get stuck.
The authenticity shines through.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what the word authenticity keeps coming up for me. And that's what, again, if you can kind of get this idea of storytelling as a relationship, showing up as your true self, that's the gift, right? When a child, you can think, gosh, when your child asks you, oh, tell me a story, they're not looking for the narrative so much as they're looking for your presence. Can you give that presence? And it's okay to create routines and practices for yourself around when you can, because of course you're not available 24 hours a day. So creating some good practices and routines for yourself of when you can tell stories, bedtime stories, obviously very common. As teachers, we tell stories at lunch very commonly. But sometimes parents stories in the morning as you're getting ready for school. Silke brought that up as an example earlier, or over the breakfast table. A short little story that just before your child goes out to school for the day and you have to go to work and you're a little bit busy, right? Have you ever had that sort of tension in the morning? Okay, gosh, we got to get ready. Oh, you're not up yet. You got to get dressed. Make sure we got lunch. I'll get lunch ready. We got breakfast, right? And that tension, you can all carry that into the day. Imagine if you could just take 5 minutes out of that. Sometimes it can feel like, boy, I cannot do one more thing. But if you can drop in and for 5 minutes, put aside the breakfast and the getting dressed and whatever, and just say, hey, this morning when I came down, I was going to make toast for breakfast. But when I put the thing in the toaster, what was in there? There was this little guy in there. He was sunbathing. Have you ever been to they have tanning salons. It's like a tanning salon in the toaster. And it just really threw me. I was a little bit upset. And I said, hey, get out of my toaster. I got to toast my bread, But he was just taking his time. He had on those funny little sunglasses. They cover your eyes like this. And he was out there and he had this oil on, whatever.
Have you been to a tanning salon?
Yeah, well, I've heard about I don't know. And you do that, right? Just a little thing like that. And it just gets a little bit of something from your child. Wait a minute. They know you're just telling a thing, but it's not the story about the little guy in the toaster. It's just this little thing, it's like, I'm doing this. It's this little second of just, look, you and me, straight on. You and me, 5 minutes, buddy. Love you so much. And I will see you at the end of the day. Right? Woo! Even when your kid goes, I don't want to, mom. Right? Kids do that. They do that. But they still hear you. And it means a lot. And it makes them look, want to circle around, right? Just like that storytelling loop. They want to come home and meet you and think about it. And they've got a little thing that they think about to the day. They can even tell their friends and their kids. They can even complain about it. They can even go, oh, my mom this morning, she wouldn't let me go. She had to tell me this goofy story about a guy in the toaster who was taking who was sun tanning. Whatever it is, right? And again, whatever it is for you, but it's that presence, it's that authenticity. Can you show up? And at the same time, don't want to pretend like, oh, and that's just easy. It's really hard to do that. So we can own that too. We don't have to pretend like, oh, of course, I'm just this perfect mother. I'm this perfect grandfather. I'm always present for my kids all the time. Well, hey, we are busy. We've got all kinds of things going on. So can we take these moments? Because sometimes that 5-minute moment can just stretch and fill the whole day, that little bit of sweetness. What were you going to say?
And I want to also say there is a storytelling monster that sometimes has snuck into homes, and it likes to actually take away the attention from the parents and the children, because it's like, I have the best story, you just push on my button and I will have a story, and I even have pictures, and my story and my pictures are so great. That can be the television. And when the children from a very young age are used to having the story through the television in the morning or in the evening for a bedtime story, they oftentimes, like, that's their go-to. It's like starting to, like if a child, for example, has the option of being nursed by the mother or is bottle fed, it will, if it has a choice, it would go for the bottle because it's easier. The storytelling, for a child to connect to the storyteller, it has to create an internal picture. If the child is raised with little stories, it will be able to follow and create the inner picture. If the child is has a lot of screen time and sees a lot of picture, the brain has to all of a sudden work and create and do hard work. And so the go-to is for the child, I would rather watch TV. Let me see a show. And so it's really good to create these times where you say, it's right now, it's story time. I'll tell you the story. And the other thing is not an option, because if it is an option, a child will oftentimes want to go to the television. And so the storyteller, sometimes it is a magic time, and you can give it even that name if, you know, so it doesn't become a competition, but you say, oh, and I actually, in a recent talk with some parents, I said, children go to the telephone and they're like, oh, get the storyteller app, because all you do is you hit the button and the story begins. And I'm like, well, you could just imagine we're installing a new app in our phone, and in order to access it, we have to turn it off. And then the telephone is off, and this app is called I'll Tell You a Tale. And now I'm going to tell you a tale. We have in the modern day times so many, actually, you could say competitors in the storyteller realm.
No, but they're not competitors.
Well, and they're really not, but they can become where there is a resistance from the children. Like, no, I want to hear the story from this person on the phone. And then you can say, well, we'll turn off the phone.
Okay, but I have an answer to that.
You
I have
have
an
an answer.
I do.
Okay,
I
you
do.
got it. Okay, bring it on.
I have an answer to that.
What's your answer?
So, and that's what sometimes people think that it's easy for people to put in storytelling sort of as competitive to videos and screen time and stuff like that. And I really I just so recommend against that. It's because if you grasp this relationship piece, storytelling is about relationship. When they have that authentic relationship with you, that's different, and they will know. It does not matter. You can have children who are watching as many videos, movies, whatever you want. When you have that authentic connection with anybody, whether that's your mom, your dad, it's grandma, grandpa, it's this loving neighbor, whoever it is, boom, it hits you. It's different. It's a different thing. And so you can still love all the other stories and things and books and everything with you, but when you connect with that person face to face, it's very unique. You know, the most cynical child will feel it when they have the opportunity to feel it. And so, yeah, remember that relationship piece. Oh shoot, there was one other thing. that I wanted to say and that I lost to it. You know what? But maybe it's a little bit of a curve into, can I speak to a little bit to the science piece?
Yeah, but I would like to still say to
Yeah.
what I touched on before, because I worked as a teacher for many, many years, and I worked with many children. The children that have had excessive screen time have a harder time creating the inner picture.
Okay, that's real.
And so they have a harder time following. It means it's work for them.
Yeah.
So if a child is being used to hearing stories, it can actually fall into creating the picture immediately. And you have and it's easy to access that storyteller realm for the listener. And that's why grandparents, oftentimes you find grandparents in the storyteller circles, because many of the grandparents grew up in an environment where there was very limited screen time, or sometimes not any at all. And so the grandparents oftentimes have an easy time being the listeners, and now are actually picking up on like storytelling. It's important, it's valuable. So right now it's oftentimes grandparents that are holding it as a very precious gift.
Mhm.
And our book too, it has really, it's been translated into 21 languages. Many countries that picked it up are from Eastern Europe. And I feel like it's understood that storytelling is something so precious, we need to preserve it. It's important. And Joe can speak more about the brain development and how important that piece is. But I think it's something that it could get lost. We could lose our personal stories, our personal connection that actually help to even connect our families. And my family's in Germany. I raised my daughters here in the United States, connected to their grandparents through stories, not so much through the telephone calls, but through the stories I told them about their grandparents. And we would visit them too. But these stories help them to keep the connection alive, because through my connection to my parents and the stories, they felt like that these stories really meant something, that I really love my little village where I grew up. And so I was able to speak that in the story. I was able to maintain a connection that allowed my children even to move back to Europe once they grew up. And so for parents and caregivers, whether you have children from other countries or different cultures that all come together through the storytelling, you are able to connect the children with the place where they came from. And by letting them know you actually care. So even if you watch a documentary about Brazil and you tell to a child that's who moved here from Brazil a story about something that you saw, it's different than if the child receives a message from a video that's on the screen. The impact is way different if the story is told through a caregiver that the child loves.
Okay. That part is definitely right. That part is definitely right. And I agree. And something that I would just say that this is the beauty of storytelling, is that what you're doing is you're engaging its active imagination. And this is a very powerful thing for human beings of any age range, right? That when you're listening to the story, a child has to picture it along with it. They have to kind of see it happen. And in fact, they're seeing it in a different way than you are. You know, you might be describing somebody walking down the hallway and then they see these colors and the candle on the wall and the blah, blah, blah. Well, it's a different candle that they see than you see. And yet you're sharing something with them. It's a really powerful thing. So Silke is exactly right in that respect, that just that we encourage children to open up and practice their imagination. And we do that when we share stories together. So that's the one piece. The other thing I wanted to say to this, I want to invite you to think, can you yourself think back on anybody in your childhood that told you stories, whether it was a parent, grandparent, a teacher, neighbor, anybody? Can you think of anybody that told you stories? Just try to recall that if you can. And now my question is this: when you remember that person, when you remember those stories, when you remember those experiences, how do you feel about that person right now? How are you feeling when you remember that person? 9 times out of 10, probably more, you're feeling a very sweet fondness for that person. That's what we're after. That's what we're trying to create. And that's what storytelling, oral storytelling, face-to-face, person-to-person can do. So I want to encourage you to do that. And I know that we're getting close to time here. So I think we have maybe 5-10 minutes more. Well, we're getting maybe 5 minutes more. I would touch on the science if we want, unless you think you have something that is better.
Well, let me see. Science is important. But I think too, remember that if you yourself are not much of a scientist and you need to call in on the grandfather to tell the story, you could do that too. But so you go ahead and tell everybody what you know.
Okay.
He knows a lot.
I'm going to share this very, very brief, okay? Because it doesn't really matter. Silke's right. It does not matter at all that you know the science of storytelling is not important. But it's a very interesting and useful perspective, okay? Because, okay, so there's all this really interesting research out there that when children and adults hear stories, they remember 6 to 7 times as much information when it's told in a story, than if it's told just like as a lecture or as straight facts. Okay, so people remember things when they're told as stories. That's interesting alone on itself. Okay, storytelling helps. It helps synchronize brain waves between people, both the speaker and listener and other listeners. There's a really great TED Talk by a man named Uri Hasson, Urihasson. He gives this TED Talk on storytelling, and he's a neuroscientist at, I think it's Princeton. It's extremely interesting. Won't go into the details. We don't have the time for it. Okay. And it helps people develop empathy. It helps people practice real life scenarios before they have to. How many stories are about death? Why? Because it helps us practice it, right? Those are kind of more of the adult stories, maybe. Okay. But there's all this interesting research. So in the last 10 to 20 years, people started saying, why? Why do stories have this impact on people? And there are a few people that have started trying to develop frameworks for understanding storytelling within the human species. Okay, and so this is from there's a really incredible writer. His name's Brian Boyd. He wrote a book called On the Origin of Stories. And it basically is asking the question, why would any two people listen to somebody tell a story that both the person who's talking and the person who's listening know is false? From the get-go, we both know that it's false, but we love it. Why would people do that? It's a sort of strange thing when you think of it from a sort of biological perspective. Okay, his answer, and this is the thrust, and this is why storytelling is about the relationship. His answer is this: humans are a social species. In fact, we're incredibly social. We're sometimes called super social because we're able to create relationships with people across the country and across the planet either, right? Okay. And this is the beauty of the human species, is this incredible intersocial network that we're able to build so that we are able to be in relationships of trust with strangers. And how do we build that social communion? One of the most powerful ways is through story. And look at it. Look at our nations. Look at our religions. Look at our neighborhoods. Look at our all kinds of social circles. The stories of these groups are critical parts of the fabric of creating that feeling of safety and of belonging is storytelling. Okay. And so storytelling is something that evolved in our species to help us establish relationships of trust, even beyond our family elements. Okay, so the very fact that we can understand stories is extremely rich and powerful. Okay, and what this also means is this: everybody is a storyteller. You are a storyteller. It's what it means to be human. We are creatures of storytelling. So you have this skill. Maybe you're not practicing it, or maybe you feel very comfortable with it. It doesn't matter. You know, when you're telling stories at the drinking coffee at the office, or, drinking a beer at the end of the day, or whatever it is with your friends, or you're gossiping about this and that. How are you doing that? How are you communicating it? You're communicating it through this story, through this narrative. Okay, and I'll quit. I'll drop it now. But the point is just this: we are storytellers. Storytelling isn't a profession. It's not. I mean, it is, and it's wonderful. The beautiful, incredible authors, animators, storytellers out there, really gifted, really beautiful. But the other way I like to say it is this: just because there's people running marathons doesn't mean you stop walking, right? We're storytellers. Of course, there's wonderful, incredible storytellers out there, but we're all still storytellers, and we're using it to develop these meaningful relationships with our loved ones, particularly our own children and our family at home. So that's the quick and dirty science of storytelling. And it looks like maybe we need to go to Q&A. Is there anything else that you wanted to say before we end?
This has been great, Joe and Silke. Thank you for this little conversation about storytelling, and the examples were incredibly powerful. But I think the motivation here is great, and we're getting a bunch of questions from folks, and I will share those questions with you, and have a couple of questions of my own. One question we got early on from folks was, what are your plans? What do you do about publishing your own stories? I think I know the answer to this, but go ahead. But tell us about, like, do you publish your stories? Is that an important thing for you?
You speak, or you want to?
I myself love to tell stories in person. And so for me, it's not so important to have them published. I have one story published in a book, Stories to Tell in the Night. And Joe could maybe speak a little bit more about publishing stories, because I think that's more dear to you.
No.
Yeah, I'm not sure, Neil, if the question is this somebody who's asking for themselves, or are they asking, like, are we writing or sharing stories?
I think they were asking for themselves.
Okay, yeah.
Could they go out and buy your stories somewhere?
Oh, okay. Yeah. We don't have like a book of stories, although, I mean, How to Tell Stories to Children is full of stories. Every chapter is basically like gives a little bit of a theme, gives examples. There's stories within it, and they all end with an example of that particular thematic element, which is one of our stories and all of those are real stories that we told with kids. We have recorded and published some stories, but it's not a major piece. We're really conflicted about it, because if you can kind of understand our take on storytelling, our whole interest is really to encourage everybody to have that sweet and tender relationship with your own kids. So we often hold ourselves back, is the truth. That's we do. We have a podcast. You can find all our work. If you find, howtotellstories2children.com, you'll find all kinds of things that we do. And we have quite a lot of like blog articles. Some of those are stories. Some of those are more thematic pieces. In our podcast, there's probably about 10 to 15 stories, but we're always kind of we're always drawing in stories and using that thematically. So we kind of weave it in and out, and we don't necessarily have like a specific like children's storytelling channel.
Yeah. You know, one person asked, is there an age where you switch to maybe asking the children to play roles in the stories and to share in the storytelling and sort of engage them more as, you know, active participants?
Yeah, I worked many years in a mixed age kindergarten, meaning 4, 5, 6-year-olds, a pre-K, you would call it. And I would usually ask the older children as they get ready towards first grade to become active participants. And we can either play acted, or they could actually tell part of the story. That means I would start telling a story and then they get to continue the story. Or I invited children also to give me different characters that I could weave into the story for them. And so if a child had, for example, desire to have a princess in the story, then I would try to give that princess a task that I know would match a task that the child is maybe struggling with. And in the story, I would pick up on that theme and let that princess, you know, deal with the problem that the child is dealing with, so the child can see itself in the character of the princess. But I do ask the children to participate when they're like 5 and 6 years of age, and then as they grow older, you'll see that children that are being told stories, they will start to tell stories among each other, and they're good storytellers. They actually they love to feel this power of keeping an audience. And you can see that the children are all of a sudden like, wow, if I tell a story, I get the attention of my friends, and they're excited about it.
Yeah.
You know, or to just to add on to that, a slightly different thing just about age appropriate stories and shifts. And we really touch on this in pretty good depth in the book, but there is a sort of natural shift around the age of 4. And there's actually some interesting science on this piece too that I won't get into. But before that, and Silke describes it really beautifully, that children want to feel wholeness in a story. So prior to this shift around age 4, of course, every child is a little bit different. You know, stories tend to be simpler. They tend to be very sweet. They tend to be, you know, mama bear stories and cub, and always kind of coming back to the wholeness. And that's because until this age, a child has difficulty seeing outside of itself. A child just sees even other people, and therefore other characters in a story, as just extensions of its own being. It's around age 4. It is kind of a brain development thing, that children develop the ability that we are so accustomed to as adults, is that we can put ourselves in other people's shoes. I know that Neil is a different person, and I can kind of think of his perspective in his office and what he's looking at. Prior to age 4, kids can't really do that. But after that, kids can kind of see themselves in a variety of characters. And that's also where you're going to get stories that are just richer and have more conflict and trouble and things like that.
You have both obviously learned a lot over the years about what works for kids of different age and different emotional makeup. What kind of clues do you look for that you might be telling a story that isn't working for the kid, that might have been you might have gone down the wrong path? Is it fidgetiness or sweating? I don't know. What would give you a clue that you were maybe like needing to backtrack on a story, or do you always get it right?
No, the thing is, I mean, it's very different telling a story to one child than telling a story to a group. So when I worked in a kindergarten with 18 kids, and there is always a child that's doesn't want to listen, or it rather plays around with its friends' ears, or and so in a bigger group setting, it's more difficult. And also if you have a different ages, like if you have 4, 5, 6-year-olds together. And in that case, for me as a teacher, it's very important to create the atmosphere for the story. Like I always had my children sit in a round circle. I light a candle. I sing a little song. And if I see that they're still fidgeting, that there's somebody who's fidgeting around or whatever, I do not send them out of the room. I work with creating the kind of excitement that the children will want to be there. And I might say, I'm going to wait until I hear the storyteller bird that comes. And when that birdie whistles, then I know I am ready to tell my tale. And I use even a voice that invites the children in to want to listen, so that the neighbor says like, hey, come on, let's listen. We want the storyteller bird to come and whistle. And if I go into the story, I mean, if I tell an intuitive tale and I have a child that like really doesn't want to listen at all, then I might say, okay, I got to backtrack, or I need to find a new angle to approach this from. And sometimes I might have to create a sound effect that even startles me, like in kaboom. What just happened? And I buy myself a moment of time to backtrack and say, wow, something happened. We have to go back out of the forest and see what just happened. And then I'm like, what will it take? So I backtrack it's like I push the rewind button by creating a little bit of startle effect. And then I can then I can enter in through another door. And that oftentimes helps, because it pulls the attention of the children into, like, they are all like, what happened? What's happening? It awakens the interest in them. And you can retrack in a story if you realize that, like, oh, this is not going down the right road. You could even say that. Oh, and on the story path, I got lost. I have to actually walk back all the way to where we came from, where we started out. Let me walk back. Oh my goodness, I have to walk all the way back. Let's start again, children, because we got lost. Can happen to all of us, even your teacher.
Yeah, and I to sort of just slightly different approach to that. And something we didn't talk about in great length, when we talk the kind of stories that we're telling, we call it intuitive storytelling, meaning we are making these stories up on the spot, right? We're not rehearsing stories and then sort of performing them. That is one way to do it. And God bless you if that's what you do. We find it's easier to sort of make them up on spot, because then you don't have to, you're not practicing, you're not memorizing. So, but the point of that is, if there's kids who are, right, they're fidgeting or something, I would, and I think Silke would on occasion too, I would be careful here to not draw that the child in like very explicitly, but I might say that, like, well, and then as the squirrel was climbing up the apple tree, it saw a little robin who was just sitting there, just kind of couldn't just sit there comfortably. And I don't know, that little robin was just so fidgety for some reason. And I would look for a way in the story itself to draw some awareness, because just like I said with the storytelling loop, sometimes a child like that, you want to do it subtle, because you don't want to put somebody on the spot, but they'll kind of like see themselves in it, and then they'll sort of laugh at themselves, or they'll sort of feel called out, or they'll see themselves in it. Yeah. So that's one way to do it. And the other thing, and this isn't really related, but is that I always suggest to people that you tell a story, you know, the main person you are telling a story to is yourself. And so you're always looking for a story that captivates you because you are your main audience. And the reason that's so important is that when you're sitting with a group of children, or you're sitting with one or children or two children, when you are telling a story that you are authentically interested in, everybody knows it. Everybody knows it. And you just have this, you have this electricity, and it's just naturally attractive. Silke will make fun of me all the time for telling stories that are like over the heads of, you know, especially her kindergartners, which is fair. But sometimes I go, it doesn't really matter that much, because again, it's not the narrative of the story that they need to take away with them. It's the experience of it. And when you watch somebody telling a story that they themselves are sort of in love with telling, it tends to just draw attention in. So don't count yourself out, right? Don't think too hard about telling the story that's for everybody else. You want that story to captivate you as well.
Yeah,
You told that you used a couple of examples earlier on about using storytelling as you know, these are my words, not yours, kind of a management for kids, helping them get along the path, or reflecting on something that happened. And one question that one of our folks asked is you know, I sometimes feel like I could be coercive or lying to children. How do I create a narrative while maintaining respect?
Mhm.
If you understand the question there.
Yes. I think it's what Joe said, tune in with yourself in like when I tell to the children, I'm going to the apple tree where I find the fairy. One could say, well, Silke, that's a lie. There is no fairy there. But I myself, for who I am, I can actually picture that fairy there, and I can even create her in my own imagination. So for me, that is not a lie. Now, if somebody says, for me, that would be like lying, and I can go there, then it's very important. It's what Joe said, listen to that authentic voice in you that says like, well, that's a lie. You do not want to take the children and tell them there's a fairy over there. Then you come up with something that's real for you. And that is like, we're going to see if the snow has fallen onto the little apples, and let's see how many are left. So I'm very comfortable using fairies and gnomes in my stories. I actually can picture them. And this is the other thing what Joe said, you should be telling the story to yourself. And that is that thing of you have to be able to picture it. Now, if I'm thinking like, oh my gosh, I'm telling these children they have to go over this hill because whatever, I don't even have a good reason, but they just have to, I just need to make them do it. And inside myself, I'm feeling like I might have to come up with a lie or something. They pick up on that, and that doesn't go too well. Standing in our own truth, that's the authenticity piece. It's very important for the storyteller.
Yeah.
You know.
I think something, or am I interrupting?
Yes, no, go ahead.
I think a way to ask yourself, right? Engage, and remember, you'll make mistakes. That might be one of them. Maybe one of your mistakes is that you told a story that was a little too coercive. And then you go, oh, well, yeah, somehow after I told that story, now in reflecting on it, I think maybe I was a little too heavy-handed with it. Great, now you learned. It's the practice that makes story. Like, I tell bad stories all the time, just all the time. It's just no big deal. It's no big deal at all, you know, because it's the cycle of it. But one way to have perspective on that is like, it's sort of asking like the moral of the story, right? And sometimes we're kind of like, oh man, sometimes if it's real heavy, you're like, it just feels too thick. Try as much as possible to use stories and elements that give perspective and allow the child to discover the truth for themselves. So instead of saying, you know, and then, you know, little Johnny went over and said, thank you to so-and-so, blah, blah, blah. You might tell a story about two people, one that was little Johnny and one that was little Tim, or whatever it is, and give both, right? So Johnny got a gift, and Johnny walked over and he just took it, and he was so happy with it that he just ran off and just never said anything again, and he was just all by himself. Little Tim went over and was so delighted and happy, and he was about to run away too, but then he turned around and he said, "Oh, thank you." And, so there's different ways, even in the midst of your own story. If you find yourself being like, whoa, I think I've walked myself into a point where I'm telling, maybe look for a little door, a little escape door, a little alternate route, or a little alternate character that might allow the child to have perspective rather than directive.
Right. Great insight about that question. Another question that came up, and I don't know if you touched on this in your book, was about, and maybe from your own history and your family histories, what are ways of using storytelling when families are together, like at the upcoming holidays, to share family history, traditions, culture, that sort of veers a little bit away from your intuitive, but it's storytelling. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I grew up actually in a multi-generational family, and I realized very early on that I was the storyteller in the family, because there was my grandma told stories, but not so much. When everybody came together, there was a little bit, the energy wasn't very light. It became a little stagnant, you could say. And I learned very early on that I could pick up stories to just bring a little bit of lightheartedness into the room. Nowadays, what I would do, and I even invite the children to, I might for Thanksgiving send home ear of corn. We actually grew this corn and we harvested it. And if I tell the children that are in our care, why don't you take this ear of corn and bring it to the Thanksgiving table and tell everybody how you grew it? And most likely somebody in your family might remember when grandpa grew his own corn, or see if you could find out. You could use a prop that could be a connecting point for storytelling in a family, or pictures also, family pictures you could, for your Thanksgiving, you could maybe ask or hide a few pictures in a basket, and or you could write names of distant relatives that are not coming to celebrate Thanksgiving with you. And let's see if we pull out the name of Uncle Henry, who has a story about Uncle Henry. Let's see, like Uncle Henry couldn't come this year because he had COVID and he needed to stay home. But let's tell a story about Uncle Henry. We can even put a little plate here for him. And so in that way, the children, first of all, can experience that we're including people, even if they're not there. And then stories, somebody just has to have that courage of bringing it up, and you could put a little story basket on the table, as I said, or make a dish that reminds you of great grandmother Anna, who always made this special plum pie, and then out of a special dish on the table, a story could arise. So you could use props like that. But the storytelling on even look at storytelling could be like one of your main dishes on the table, if you look at it in that way, because it can really connect. And so using little things like apples or something on your table that you're like, oh, I wonder, or even that could connect us to our families far away. And this little apple connects me to my grandfather, who actually loved apples. And so I have great stories about him. And I teach my kindergarten children by telling stories about my family and my village, so that they learn to tell stories about their family and their auntie or their grandmother or grandfather. So I'm setting this example that the children can imitate that as well.
Yeah. Two quick pieces to that. I don't have it like, I can't just pull it up like this, but there's a great excellent research on the importance of family stories for children, because what it does is it helps them feel like they're connected and they have history and they have a place in the world. Children who do not hear family stories because maybe parents feel stressed about it, or whatever, they are more likely to feel isolated, and like when difficult things come up in life, they don't have the same sense of belonging. So like telling family stories is extremely vital for helping a child feel like they have a place in the world. And you can look that kind of information up pretty darn easily. That's one. The second one, which is just a quick thing, which is more or less what Silke is saying. You probably have a game in your house right now with words on it. Like there's a really common game called Apples to Apples, or what's that one with the little thing you put it on your forehead, right? Like almost everybody has this game.
Yeah, I played it, yeah.
Right? Really funny. Okay, so it just anything, or you have flashcards, or like you get little word cards for children, and here's an apple, here's a fire, here's a cake, okay, whatever, find that little thing, right? And when you're sitting around the table or you're at the couch or whatever, use these cards, and here's what you do. You just bring them out and you go, you just pick one, and it's cake. And everybody just has to tell a story about a cake, any cake. Spontaneous stories like that can sometimes free families from the because sometimes we might experience tension or things around family stories and holidays and discomfort. But when you tell everybody in the room, look, we're just pulling a card and it's a campfire. Everybody just tell a story about a campfire. 2 minutes can be whatever you want. And everybody goes, beep, 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 beep. And, that can be a really way to introduce sweet and sort of spontaneous and easy stories and not put people on the spot, because it's kind of like rolling the dice. It feels random. So that's just a suggestion.
Yeah, and
I think we could probably do a whole nother session some evening on using storytelling in family gatherings. I think that'd be just like
oh yeah,
a whole other session. In fairness to you guys, we're pretty much to the end of our time, and I was thinking about, as you were talking about sort of all the things you brought up about the power of storytelling to foster imagination and creativity and empathy and curiosity, and most importantly, relationships, and how all those are such core values to the work that we're all doing to raise successful kids. So I thank you for this. And I wanted to leave you with one comment from one of our folks who was out there listening, and who writes in that I am in my 80s and my dad used to tell me stories. I can remember the characters, but none of the stories. But I do remember, as if it were yesterday, sitting on his lap and listening to him. Yes. And so, as Joe said, it's the connection, right? And so that's what we all want to have happen with this storytelling, for kids to grow up remembering that connection. So thank you both for what you do and for sharing that with everybody tonight.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Neil. Thanks to the Discovery Museum. Thanks for everybody who showed up today. Just wish you good things out there in your life.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, everybody out there who's listening, have a great evening, and you will be getting a follow-up survey from us in the email very soon, and we'd appreciate you responding to that. Joe, Silke, thank you. Have a good evening.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Okay.